So let's talk about what's new in the collective bargaining agreement. Anyway, this kind of came out of the blue. I wasn't really expecting them to do this year, but it passed, and there's some really cool stuff in there. So let's get right into it. We talked about this a little bit in the last video, but obviously in the 2021 the NFL is going to a 17 game season, so that will allow us to add a extra week. So we'll now have a 13-week season starting next year. And then also starting this year, the NFL is expanding their playoffs. So here is what the bracket looks like. So basically, how that applies to us is we will allow two extra teams into the playoffs, and basically the best team in each conference are the only ones who get the bye. This then obviously will affect our toilet bowl, where we will only have the two worst teams in each conference will play each other for the number one pick in the draft. So we are expanding our playoffs to match the NFL's playoffs, and this is the bracket where again the number one team in each conference gets the bye. Those are the only byes. So the NFL is also adding two roster slots for every team in the NFL. So I figured we can go ahead and add one. So that will give us 23 players and two coaches. Also, I want to clarify this. You must have two coaches and you must have two special teams. You have the option to have one or two defenses. The other thing I don't know why this is a one off thing and the NFL is doing it this year, so will we. But this year and this year only, you can use only one franchise tag or one transition tag. That's it. You can't use both. We can still use our low tenders because our low tender is what we use it's the only way that we can really do restricted free agency. You can only use a franchise tag and a low tender or a transition tag and a low tender, but you can't use a franchise tag and a transition tag. So make sure you know that going forward. Now, the last thing that really is happening in the NFL is all the players are getting a raise. They're making more of the percentage of the revenue. And so, how we're going to replicate this in the AFL is as follows. We're going to start giving, again, all of our players are getting a raise. So this year's minimum salary is going to be $1.20. And then that's going to, so basically, the minimum that you can put a player up for auction for is going to be $1.20. And then this is going to increase every year until 2030, which is how they have it in the CBA. So I've just kind of my own projections. We're going to raise it by 11 cents per year until the year 2025, and then it'll be a nickel every year until 2030, when the minimum salary in the AFL will be $2. So they're going to basically double their money over the next 10 years. Also, our Pro Bowl bonuses will all be increased by an additional 5%. Our rookie wage scale has been increased. So basically, that top pick in the draft, the first pick overall, will make 4% of a team's $140 salary cap, which will be $5.60. Obviously, then, too, all of the other rookies in a draft will get a raise accordingly. And I've got the new rookie wage scale posted. Fifth-year option salaries are going to increase, and we are going to do a deeper dive into that kind of after this in the video. And then there's a new thing called proven performance indicators, which are now a part of every rookie contract, which means that now if the player outplays his contract, his year 4 salary will increase as well. So we'll do a deeper dive on that in a few minutes here. Really, I think that the best idea then too is, since all of these player salaries are increasing, we should increase our salary cap. Now, I know we've had this talk before, and $140 seemed, at the limit. So what I think that we could do is maybe we increase it by $1 a year starting next year, so that by 2030 it's an even $150. I think that's going to be acceptable. Hopefully it's acceptable. So if that is not acceptable, remember we can always keep that $140 that goes into the pot the same, but the in-game salary cap can just raise to $150. Let's talk about the fifth year option. So first of all, fifth year options only apply to players chosen in the first round. And second of all, these new changes are retroactive back to the 2018 draft. Don't ask me why they did it, but that's what the NFL did, so we're going to do that too. So the way that works is obviously if you're chosen in the first round of the 2018 draft, you are available for the fifth year option, and then depending on 4 different criteria, that price is going to vary. If that player did not score 75% of the highest point totals per position on his team, his fifth year option price will be the same price as the low tender tag. If he did score 75% of the highest score, per the yearly total per position on his team, then his fifth year option price will be the average of the 3rd through the 20th highest played players at that position. If that player then happens to make a Pro Bowl in any of his first years, he'll get the transition tag, and if he makes 2 Pro Bowls during his first 3 years, his fifth year option price will equal the franchise tag. So basically, there are kind of like 4 different tiers, and based on those criteria, the fifth year option may be more expensive than if he didn't play as well. So let's talk about these proven performance escalators. So these apply to players that are chosen in the 2nd or 3rd round in our draft. If the player reaches certain criteria, their 4th year salary will be increased. So it's a little confusing, so I'm just going to read it exactly here. So basically that first tier is if a player has a minimum of 55% of the highest scoring player's points on his team at the same position in any 2 of his first 3 seasons, he'll qualify for that first tier, which would be, again, equal to the low tender price of that season. Similarly, the 2nd tier, he would have to score a minimum of 60% of the highest scoring player's points on his team. So if he qualifies for that 2nd tier, he will have 1/3 of the difference between the transitional tag and the low tender tag. So it's just a bump up in his 4th year salary. And then that level 3 tier is if he played in at least 1 Pro Bowl, he will get then 2/3 of that difference between the transitional and a low tender price. So I don't want to get too fuzzy into the math. It's a little confusing, but I've got it all, figured out in my end when I do those off-season salary updates. Basically, it just means that, actually, it also might mean that we might have fewer 4th year rookie or players in their rookie contract holding out. So anyway, it's a pretty cool escalator based on performance that these 2nd and 3rd round picks can make more money. So it's kind of like a halfway point between having them be eligible for that 5th year option price. So that pretty much covers the new collective bargaining agreement stuff. I've got most of it in the rules right now. It's still a work in progress, so not everything in there is going to be set in stone. Also, I've got part of the schedule in there. It's not quite right yet, so there will be some changes. But anyway, the league is open to trading. There is no salary cap right now, so trade until your heart's content. And be safe, everyone.